The bubonic plague killed an estimated 50 million Europeans in the span of 4 years. 1,000 years later, a new plague surfaces with the potential to cause 10 times the loss of human life. Not wanting to risk a catastrophic outbreak, all known victims were quarantined to a medical research satellite along with leading medical scientists from around the world to find a way to stop the plague from wreaking havoc before it even happens. Unknown to the citizens of Earth, however, artificially comatose human test subjects were also taken on board. You are one of these guinea pigs, and you have woken up. You must find a way to escape the facility and survive the plague you've been infected with. We will be focusing intently on 5 main aspects of Project Zinc during development: the player's tool, called the Olympus, the environmental aesthetics, audio design, the player's movement, and artificial intelligence. Project Zinc's audio is something more than sound effect. It's more than a catchy tune in the background for players to enjoy. Audio is the mentality to entice the player, and that's exactly what it will do. This was chosen to be a part of Project Zinc because it will aid the player throughout their journey. For example, say the player is approaching a body in a hallway and they decide to ignore it as there's a sharp sound or the music suddenly spikes to startle the player. Another way the feature will be important: the player is running from an enemy and the game is silent. The player should feel afraid, but the silence isn't helping. Helping what the players should be feeling. But what if there was music playing or a sound effect? Then the player can register that this is terrifying because the sound is affecting the player's subconscious. That registers the, hey, this is scary, or hey, this music is very calming. I could really explore to this melody. So all that being said, the game's audio will be a mix of calming, exploring tune to an intense or upbeat tune in combat, the rambling of the NPCs, and all the way to the breath of the protagonist within the game. Project Zinc's main aesthetics will consist of a space station and the rooms within. Due to the numerous labs and living quarters, the size of the space station will be of an extremely large scale. The labs will hold home to scientists conducting virus experiments on human test subjects. The detail in the lab will consist of the equipment and utensils used for the experiments. The appearance will give a clear understanding of a surreal environment, with all white walls and equipment. Walking down the halls to the other rooms, the doors will open with motion. The futuristic look of the living quarters will showcase items of geometric shapes and recessed lighting. As the player moves through the shuttle, they will catch a glimpse of the space around them through rectangular windows throughout the rooms. The surreal environments are no more. The escaped human test subjects must make their way through the shuttle, avoiding the infected. The once clean labs are now covered in blood of the scientists that conducted the experiments. Rooms and lab equipment are in disarray. The motion-activated doors are now malfunctioning due to the emergency alarm system. The infected can be seen through the door windows, throwing objects at the doors and slamming their fists to try and escape. From the objects the players come in contact with, the walls that guide the player in the right direction, and the environment that delivers the visual aid of the character's location. The aesthetics give the player an array of emotions. The visual aids give the player direction on where they need to go. The player may begin with a calm feeling while walking through the clean and organized labs. As the terror continues, the blood-stained walls and aftermath of the infected will give their player higher anxiety. The aesthetics work with the storyline in order to flood the player's senses, each part being a puzzle piece that lures the player in for more. Arguably, the most important feature of the game is how the player interacts with the game's environment, and a unique tool can be an iconic way to do so. The Olympus will be that unique tool. Different modules will be available for the player to put into the Olympus, with each module changing the tool's functionality. Examples of some specific modules include a gravity gun module, a water gun module, an item scaler, and a hacking tool. The Olympus will only have room for 2 modules, however, which will introduce a unique, meaningful choice and make players strategize and plan out which module to use for certain situations. One of the most important concepts about the Olympus is the lack of traditional violence to solve the player's challenges. Too many games released rely on firearms or other methods of traditional violence to attract players. To further explain, where several first-person shooter action games have the player shoot enemies, walk to the next stage, and repeat. With the Olympus, all combat is non-conventional. Instead of shooting enemies, the water gun module can be used to push enemies away or into traps. The item scaler can be used to shrink enemies to nothingness, and the gravity gun could pin them to the ceiling. This non-conventional combat will not only catch potential buyers' eyes, but it will also stand out to critics as innovating and risk-taking, which increases publicity and media coverage of the game. If given the proper dedication, the Olympus can become an iconic image of the game and can be easily recognizable symbol of the company's success, much like Mario's mushrooms, Link's Master Sword, and the hidden wrist blades of Assassin's Creed. Players crave diversity of gameplay, and have a truly unique take on the player's primary tool is the most iconic way to provide players with that diversity. Our team firmly believes that the realistic and well-placed movement of characters, terrain, and objects will give a very unique life to our game. We've implemented a stamina system to control characters' breathing based on an eternal energy bar. When the player is tired, the breathing movement will contract out further and become more noticeable. We have went into great detail to add very lifelike physics to terrain and usable objects throughout the level. Glass that can break with appropriate force, great doors that can be pulled or pushed with the right weight, and objects like cabinets and lockers can be pushed and crushed with blunt force. As shown in some of our sources, we plan on creating a very diverse set of movements for our characters to utilize. Hiding, diving, and crawling to avoid enemy detection will be vital throughout patches of the game when goods are scarce to be found. Rigid bodies of objects like desks and lockers will have to be pushed and pulled to barricade the infected out of certain areas. In the events that our player will have to journey outside to repair the shuttle, we will use realistic wind and environmental movements to capture the dangers of harshness of the climate. Finally, we are putting together a great enemy AI movement system that will change depending on characters' detection, injuries, or noise. Short bursts in speed, crawling, or dragging oneself because of injuries are all within the arsenal of movements we are putting together for our infected beings. Imagine a game where the world you're a part of is actually living, breathing, or even evolving around you, never staying the same. This is the experience the player will be having while battling against the AI in the game. The player will come across 3 different stages of infected throughout the game. Stage 1, still a sick, weak-looking human experiencing involuntary actions when interacting with the player, all the way to stage 3, where the AI hardly resembles something human, looking to violently attack the player on sight. Throughout the game, the AI will advance from stage to stage as the player makes their way throughout the game. The AI will be detecting the player through sight, sound, and player sickness level, and even smell in some cases. The AI can actively hunt the player through smell if and when it reaches stage 3 of infection. If the player is within vicinity, the AI will make its way in the general direction of the player, looking to seek them out. But the player does have a way to counteract this feature. If the player kills one of the infected or comes across the body of one of the infected, They can interact with the body to cover themselves in the scent of the infected for a short period of time. If the player doesn't want to go that route, they can go the route of tracking one of the game's unique features, being the player's sickness level. If the player is able to keep their sickness level down, the AI will attack the player on sight. But if the player walks on the riskier side and lets their sickness level get high enough, they will be able to walk among the first two stages of the infected as if they were one of them. Or finally, the player can take on a brighter approach and work through puzzles to come up with individual cures for the infected. Once a cure is crafted by the player, they can use it to render the infected incapacitated, giving the player an easier route to maneuver through. This is where the unique value of the game comes in. When it comes to AI, there will never be an exact playthrough for the game to game. The main features of Project Zinc: audio, aesthetics, the player's tool, movement, and artificial intelligence is what entices the player to become enthralled into the story of the game. Each feature bounces off the other in order to fully enhance the player's experience. The environment will astound the player by the way the lab looks after the cast begins, and the audio interactions will grab the player's attention. The game's iconic weapon will give the game's unique interactions between character and infected. You must fight the clock in order to survive and find a cure. Once the cure has been found and the escape pod prepared, there is relief. Without knowing if the cure worked, did you save yourself or jeopardize mankind?